Important people in the audience I see with some stickers on. We want to welcome you to the Capitol, to the Rayburn Room. Today we're making a little history. First of all, some people will say it's a little history for the standpoint that you've got elected officials keeping their word. We made a commitment to America that we would bring a milestone bill, the Parents' Bill of Rights. And that's what today is all about. It's about every parent, every mom and dad, but most importantly, about the students in America today. You know, it's a pretty straightforward bill. We firmly believe that this bill's foundation is kind of on 5 pillars. And today, when you introduce a bill, it always is given a number. And in the majority, you're able to reserve the first through 10. This is H.R. 5 for a very important reason. When you turn about 5 is when you start going to kindergarten, right? You start your education. But this bill, by Julia Letlow, kind of sits on 5 main pillars. The right to know what's being taught in the school and for you to be able to see the reading materials, right? The right to be heard. So many times across this nation we found that parents were attacked, called terrorists, if they simply wanted to go to a school board meeting to be heard about what's going on. The right to see the school budgets and how they spend their money. The right to protect your child's privacy. And the right to be updated on any violent activity at the school. We think these are pretty basic things that everybody and every parent should have a right to. Because it doesn't matter if you're from Louisiana, Florida, Indiana, New York, or North Carolina, or even California. It doesn't matter the color of your skin, your wealth. When you have a child, that is the most important thing in your life. You'll give your life for that child. And one thing we know in this country is education is the great equalizer. And we want the parents to be empowered. And that's what we're doing today. That you have a say in your kids' education, not government, and not telling you what to do. So that's why I believe it's a milestone. That's why I'm excited about what's happening today. And I've got some great individuals up here joining with us, and what I'd like to do, have them say a few things, and then most importantly, we want to hear from the parents. And you can even ask us some questions. So let's start with our conference chair, Elise Stefanik. You want to say a few things? You've been on this bill for quite some time, working to make sure this day comes to fruition. And you know why she's smiling so much? Because she's got this young child named Sam that even smiles more. Happiest baby I have ever met. I love seeing Sam whenever I get the chance. Go ahead, Elise.
Well, thank you to our speaker. Thank you to all of you for being here today. It's great to see so many kids. It's great to see so many parents in support of the Parents' Bill of Rights. When I was first elected to Congress, I wanted to be on the Education and Workforce Committee because education was so important in my life. And my parents' advocacy to ensure that I had the best quality education, were it not for that, I would not have had the opportunity to serve my district in upstate New York. And Speaker McCarthy is right. There is nothing more life-changing than becoming a parent. I am the proud mom of Sam. As Kevin mentioned, Sam is 18 months, so I'm the newest mom in Congress, and we are proud to be standing up for families, for parents, for grandparents, but most importantly, for kids across this country. So thank you to Julia Letlow for introducing this bill. We're excited in this House Republican majority that we will pass this bill, and a thank you to my colleague, Chairwoman Virginia Foxx, who has been such a leader on this issue as well.
Let's turn to our Chairwoman, Virginia Foxx, who education has been her life. She comes here as former president of a college. Her whole focus has been on education. She is the chair of the Committee on Education, and she has just been such a champion for the parents and the students. Chairwoman Foxx?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, in his opening comments, said education changes lives. It certainly changed mine. I grew up in a house with no electricity, no running water. And so education was absolutely the pathway for me. And I am so grateful to have the opportunity to serve in Congress and serve as the chair of the Education Committee. And I also am a parent and a grandparent. And I know, as all the parents in here know, that children are our greatest blessing, and we will do everything we can to help those children succeed. And even though I was very poor, my parents insisted I do well in school. And I did do well in school because my parents were my first teachers and nurturers, and they wanted me to grow up to be a productive citizen. And that's what all parents want for their children. But what's happened over the years, and I've seen it because I've been a part of the education bureaucracy. I was on a school board for 12 years, is unfortunately the bureaucracy has branded teachers with a scarlet, branded parents with a scarlet letter and called them terrorists. We cannot have the education bureaucracy call parents who care about their children, are involved in their children's education, radicals. That's not a radical idea, except if you think about our country being a radical idea in pushing freedom for everybody. That's abhorrent and antithetical to American values, and we want to stop that. And I want to say I'm proud of the number. You have the number 5 because it is my favorite number.
It's a very strong number. Well, this is H.R. 5. That means how important we think it is, but building on the 5 pillars. And the author of this bill, the Parents' Bill of Rights, she's a congresswoman, but she'd first tell you she's a mother to 2 wonderful children. Before she ever got to Congress, her whole focus was on education. And you know what? She never changed when she got to Congress, and she's proving it today by the Parents' Bill of Rights. Julia Letlow.
Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker. I am thrilled about today. I am so honored. Thank you for entrusting me to author the Parents' Bill of Rights. You know, I think the pandemic brought to light for a lot of us moms and dads, for the first time ever, we sat down and we saw what our children were being taught through the virtual classroom. And when we saw that, so many of us were disheartened with what we were viewing. And so then we did the right thing, right? We went to our school boards and we voiced our displeasure. But we were turned away, and some of us were even labeled domestic terrorists. That was absolutely not right. And so that was the impetus for this bill. That was it. Thanks to all of you in this room, for the parents, for stepping up and saying, no, enough is enough, and we are going to fight to make sure that our voices are heard, that we have a right to have a seat at the table when it comes to our children's education. This bill is going to ensure that moving forward. Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker, for this opportunity.
You know, you raised a very good point. The pandemic was so difficult for our entire nation. But the one thing that came out of it, we started seeing what was being taught in our schools. We saw seeing what they were reading. That's something we should have every day. But then we had to fight to find it out. And then when we fought to make our voice, we were attacked. No longer will that take place. You know, a new member to Congress, but not to a new member to working so hard, not just for his children, but for his constituents as mayor, Congressman Bean. Why don't you talk from Florida?
Speaker McCarthy, what an honor it is to be here. Thank you so much, Virginia Foxx, Dr. Foxx, thank you. To all the kids out there, I've got a question for you. All the kids or students, please, if you at least got to leave school early today, raise your hand. Hey, all right. That is certainly exciting. So I'm going to give you a little tip. All the kids, and I know we've got even some high schoolers here. Here's a little tip. Just tuck it under the way. Something Bean told you along the way is over the next several months, in fact, over the next year, anytime you're asked to do an essay, mention the fact that you were in Congress. When I was in Congress, this is what happened. So you're going to get a couple of extra credit by saying you spent the afternoon in Congress. It's a big deal that we're here today. I got to start the fight that Representative Letlow talked about, that our eyes were opened, what was happening in the classroom. We were shocked. And so we began to fight. I was part of the state legislature last year in the free state of Florida, where we had an empowering bill that really should be titled, Let Kids Be Kids. There's just a small window where kids have that innocence and let them enjoy it. And in fact, let's let them learn colors and addition and reading. We don't have time to learn anything that's inappropriate. So we passed that bill, and that is the start of a revolution. Now you would think, who could be against letting kids be kids? who could be against, when Speaker McCarthy talked about the bill about letting parents be involved in their kids' education, who could be against that? Well, I've only been here for 8.5 weeks, and you would be surprised. I know that every bill, even the ones that you think, who could be against that? There is a fight coming up on the horizon for this bill. I'm committed. We've got great leaders, and I'm just happy to be a part of it. And guess what? Because you're here, you're now a part of it. So we're all a team. Let's go get it done.
Great words. And one thing to all the students, you're always given homework. This is your homework from here. You need to follow H.R. 5. So you follow, it's going to be introduced. You follow it through committees. Write your member. Advocate for what you believe in, right? And as we move this bill through, I'm going to invite you back. Because as long as you're not in high school 12 and under, we'll bring you onto the floor and we'll let you watch when we vote that bill and get it out, all right? You do some advocacy here for us. And our next Congresswoman, she's worked so hard on this subject even before she got here. Congresswoman Erin Houchin from Indiana, just working.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I am so honored to be part of this panel and this bill. I did work on this issue. I've been fighting what I call the educational industrial complex back in the state of Indiana for many years in the state legislature. I'm so proud to have been at the forefront of those fights. And when we fight to win. And that's exactly what we're going to do on this issue. Representative Letlow, Dr. Foxx, thank you for leading the charge on this for these parents and these kids. It's kind of amazing to me that we even have to have a bill, because this seems like the schools should be doing this anyway. But we did realize during COVID that our kids were learning things and being exposed to things that parents were shocked by, to be honest. And the president in the State of the Union talked about starting kids as early as 4 years old. So that makes this even more critical that we get this done, and we will. And we do have a fight ahead, but you got several fighters up here that are there for you, and we appreciate you being here for us. Thank you.
Well, thank you all very much for the comments. But just how we even, before we wrote this bill, what we did, we went out and listened to parents. That's what Julia did, listen to parents. And today, we want to do the exact same thing. So I know there's a few in the audience. You might have a couple questions. I made sure I had very bright people around me that can answer these questions. So come on up to the mic. How do we want to do?
She wants to go right to the front. Good afternoon, and thank you for this opportunity to speak.
Go ahead and introduce yourself and your topic.
My name is Neely McAllister, and I am a Fairfax County mother of four. Three of my daughters are still in school. I have 2 high schoolers, and I have one in 5th grade. It is no secret that Fairfax County was one of the worst school districts when it came to pandemic mandates and school shutdowns. After Governor Youngkin announced his executive order banning mask mandates in school, my daughter, who is here with me now, she stood firm in her decision to no longer wear a mask to school. And for that, she was suspended 11 times. 11 times for not wearing a mask. Think about how absurd that sounds. That even the New York Times recently had to admit that masks were essentially ineffective and useless, despite all the negative consequences caused by heavy-handed mandates forced onto us by bureaucrats and teachers' unions. There was a silver lining. Parents in Fairfax County and in school districts across this country now had a front row seat to what their children were learning in school. And in most cases, we were dismayed and appalled at the adult subject matter that was not only on the bookshelves, easily accessible on the bookshelves of taxpayer-funded libraries, but also be enforced upon them in the classroom. So not only were we finally figuring out what they were actually being taught in schools, but it exposed the complete disdain for parental input. As parents, it is our primary duty to protect our children and preserve their innocence. Unfortunately, there is a toxic movement infiltrating our schools that is more interested in pushing a political agenda rather than teaching our students, our children, what the subjects we were taught in school: math, reading, science, history. So my question is, how will the Parents' Bill of Rights, introduced today, how will that ensure parents have access to the curriculum and the reading material, and inviting parental input? I want to know how this bill intends to put the power back in the hands of the parents.
Elise, you want to take it?
Well, thank you so much for your advocacy. Fairfax County, we know, was really ground zero for raising the national consciousness on the importance of this issue. Thank you to you for being here on behalf of your sisters and your siblings. And we are very proud as Republicans and in this Republican majority to be the party of parents and be the party of students, our next generation of leaders. Two important aspects of this bill are ensuring and requiring that curriculums are not only made public for anyone to access, but that any parent at any time can have individual access to that curriculum. We also go a step further. Any content or book in the school library or in the classroom or online content that is being taught, parents are able to review that at any time. That's important to me as a young mom. I think about my son Sam's educational future, what kids are exposed to in terms of the content, in terms of what they're reading. That is really important for parents to be able to review that material. And I will tell you, from the state of New York, we were not like the free state of Florida. In fact, we were one of the last states to lift the mask mandate, which hurt our kids, particularly hurt our kids who need special speech language educational opportunities. So I'm proud to be an advocate for parents and, most importantly, students. Transparency is important. Access to curriculum and the ability to review curriculum is important. So thank you for being here today, and we are so proud of Governor Glenn Youngkin's leadership on the education issue. Thanks.
Now, what's your name?
Rona?
Rona?
Rona.
Well, I just want to say this. By you standing up shows your fortitude, shows your perseverance. And what it really tells me is I'm probably going to be voting for you one day. I'm very proud of you, and keep up the hard work, all right? When you think about this bill, think about this empowers you too, okay? Thank
The curriculum wasn't posted online and it wasn't available in a school district. Then I asked them if they were teaching gender theory, and they told me that they don't call children boys and girls, and they embed the values of gender identity into every classroom, including kindergarten, and they didn't want to answer any of my questions further. They told me that they would communicate with me only through public records requests, and that is the only way I could get my questions answered. And when I did submit the public records request that they told me to submit, and I submitted hundreds because I had hundreds of questions, my school board then put my name on the agenda of a public school board meeting and held a public school board meeting to discuss suing me for submitting the request that they told me to submit. In a 5-hour-long school board meeting, they openly debated my moral character, my political motivations. They said that I was causing chaos, wreaking havoc, harming the district, harming children. One school board member even said she felt unsafe and started to cry. because, as you see, I'm really scary standing here right now. And they really just tarred and feathered me for asking questions. And they had never met me before, and this was the first school board meeting that I had ever been to in my life. They wanted to send a message to other parents that if you ask questions, they will come after you. Well, at the end of this meeting, they decided that they wouldn't sue me for asking questions because they never intended on actually suing me. They just wanted to publicly humiliate me in a school board meeting that was a show trial. And when that happened, then the teachers union, the largest teachers union in the country, the NEA, did file a lawsuit against me to bully me and harass me with frivolous litigation and to send a message to other parents that if you ask questions about public education, they will come after you. And I'm here so that this doesn't happen to any other parent in America. I'm still in litigation for almost 2 years with the teachers union. I still don't have my answers. But what I do know is that my school district and my teachers union didn't want to just hide the curriculum from me. They wanted to ruin my life just for asking for it. And I don't want that to happen to any other parent in America. So I'm very happy to be here today with this bill. And my question for you is, how will this bill ensure that parents like me can get their questions about education answered?
You want to take this, Virginia?
I will. First of all, Nicole, let me say thank you to you. Let me say thank you to Rona. Told they're supposed to be stopping bullying in the schools, but they themselves are role models for bullies. And thank the Lord that you did not step down, and I'm sure there are going to be other parents who are going to speak. Guarantees that you have the right to go to the school board. I mentioned earlier, and I actually saw a group of 10 parents could change the minds of school boards in those days. That has changed again because of the power of the who want to keep the control of the schools. But I brought my pocket copy of the Constitution with me today because Republicans pride themselves on doing things according to the Constitution. And so what the Parents' Bill of Rights has done is put into language that lives meet with and communicate with the officers of the school board and the school board. And where does that stem from? That stems from the First Amendment. And so I'm just going to reiterate that a little bit because I think it's very important. And I hope for any of you, if you run into this kind of problem with the school boards, just take your pocket copy of the Constitution with you and say, you know, this is my right as a citizen, as a person who lives in this country. You don't even have to be a citizen. You can be you'll be legally here. So let me say, Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press. But here's the most important point for our discussion today, or the right of the people peaceably to assemble. So when you go to a school board, you are there to peaceably assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. And that's what you were doing. You were completely within your constitutional rights to do what you were doing. And our freedom goes away when these bureaucracies and these petty tyrants stand up to tell you what you cannot do and then sue you to intimidate you. But you have a rock to stand on, and that's the Constitution. And what the Parents' Bill of Rights is doing is reiterating to people in this country, that we believe in the Constitution. We as Republicans believe in the Constitution, and we're upholding your rights as parents and students and citizens of this country. So God bless you for doing what you've done, and you'll prevail. You will prevail. Thank you very much.
Parents will prevail. Thank you.
I hope everybody, listen, I wouldn't believe that was even true in America if you didn't stand up and tell me that. Just think, they sued you for asking what's being taught to your child. I mean, we wouldn't think we'd have to do this bill, but you are the exact reason why we have the Parents' Bill of Rights. Mm-hmm. So thank you for keep fighting. Appreciate it. Yes?
Hi. My name is Stacy Wimsley. I'm a resident of Westchester, Pennsylvania, and a mother to 2 sons with special education needs. One of my children actually has a speech disability, so the mask issue, the access to speech and language services is very near and dear to my heart. I also currently serve as a school director for the Westchester Area School District and was elected in 2021. I ran for this position after struggling to be heard as a parent, a taxpayer, and as a concerned member of my community. So I am so excited to see attention at the national level on parent rights in public education, and I just want to applaud all the other mothers and children who stood up here today. Transparency in public education, especially with respect to expenses and taxation, was a cornerstone of my campaign and advocacy within my community. Fiscal responsibility continues to be a priority for me as our district operating expenses have increased almost $100 million in just 10 years. That's an almost 40% increase in that time period. While I live in an area that is considered affluent, we have seen the cost of living rise in accordance. We also have a rising number of retired and fixed income residents and an increasing number of Title I elementary schools, which means that 40% of our families do not make a living wage for our area. We cannot continue to tax and spend, even with modest tax increases, without negatively impacting our community, especially in a time when we know the last 3 years have resulted in historic learning loss. Our own district standardized test scores indicate that we have not recovered from those educational impacts, and when we attempt to address the learning loss, we have to invest significant time, money, and resources for little gain. Districts across this country will continue to face those headwinds, resulting in more spend without the guarantee of understanding how those costs are tied, positively or negatively, to learning loss and to educational outcomes. I have learned a lot in my first 15 months in office, and while we do publish our financial statements regularly, they are not easily digested by the average citizen. In fact, our district was recently audited by the Pennsylvania Auditor General, and we received severe criticism on some of our budgetary practices, especially with respect to growing reserve accounts. Last year, I voted against our annual budget as it once again included a multi-million-dollar increase in operating expenses and a tax hike for our residents. So my question for you today is, what can pillar number 3 of the Parent Bill of Rights do to help ensure that there is meaningful disclosure of school budgets and spend so that our average citizens can not only understand, but constructively challenge how those budgets are built, executed, and reconciled each year?
Who wants to take this? Julia, all right?
First, Stacy, thank you so much for stepping up and running. I am so confident that parents will have a seat at the table because parents just like you are stepping up and running for your school boards and for being the school director and for having a voice for your 2 boys. What are your boys' names?
This is Liam, he's 11, and Connor, he's 12.
Welcome, Liam and Connor, to the People's House, your house. We're so excited to have you today.
Thank you.
Mama to mama, I share your concern, and that was really why I was so honored to author this bill, because it's really about 2 things. It's about transparency and accountability. And it's not an attack on teachers, because don't get me wrong, I am an educator myself. I know how hard that is. Our teachers are our heroes. But it's about a partnership. I think we were speaking earlier. Any teacher will tell you that when parents are involved, students succeed. And we want to make sure that parents have a seat at that table. And so this bill doesn't only outline and make public a curriculum, but it also makes public the finances and the budget that your tax dollars are being used to fund our schools. Doesn't that make sense? I mean,
does.
absolutely should. And as a parent, any parent should be able to easily identify those dollars and be able to interpret that budget. You shouldn't have to be an accountant to be able to read a school's budget.
A forensic accountant.
There you go.
And I am not, but I'm doing my best.
So this bill will clearly defines that each school and each school district will have to lay that out yearly. This is so important as schools are continuing to use those COVID dollars. We want to make sure that they are addressing the learning loss that our students experienced. So please feel confident that within this bill that you are going to know without a doubt how your tax dollars are being used. Again, I can't thank you enough for stepping up, for fighting for our parents, but most importantly, fighting for our kids and our next generation. Thank you. God bless you.
Thank you for standing with us.
Thank you. Have any more questions? Come right up.
Hi, everybody. I've dropped my paper, so you got to bear with me. My name is Scott Smith. I'm here today as a father and a taxpayer. And like all of you, I want a future where our children are safe at school and not sexualized, politicized, and radicalized. 18 months ago, I was arrested at a Loudoun County School Board meeting. I was restrained, tackled, and charged with disorderly conduct and slandered in the media across the world. But my real crime was voicing my concerns as a parent and standing up for my family and my community. In May 2021, my daughter was sexually assaulted at her school in her female bathroom by a boy wearing a skirt. As any parent can understand, this was a painful and devastating time for our family. This should have never happened and could have been prevented. I went to the school board meeting to speak up for my daughter and to get some answers that we deserved. But instead of putting her safety and our safety of other students first, the Loudoun County School Board tried to hide the facts and protect their administrators at all costs. We now know that 3 young girls were attacked by the same now convicted sexual predator. The school board has failed each of these young girls and their families every step of the way and continues to do this every day, to this very day. A special grand jury report ordered by our new governor, Governor Glenn Youngkin, released last year, confirmed the board's lack of transparency and failures to the district's families. Yet the school board still refuses to be transparent and take accountability. To this day, nothing. 2 weeks ago, LCPS officials voted against releasing the redacted report of the independent review that they did, and they told us that they would be transparent with it, but they refused to release it. This is an insult to every parent in the district. It disrupts the trust that we have and keeps the community from healing. No family deserves to be treated this way. Parents deserve answers. We deserve transparency. We have the right. Our children belong to us, the parents. We are not so-called domestic terrorists. We are loving parents who are committing to promoting the well-being and safety of our kids and their education to become smart and make good things for themselves. I came here today to share our family story in the hopes that we can prevent other parents from living through the same nightmare. Thanks. My question is, how will the Parents' Bill of Rights introduced today help protect students like my daughter's privacy and ensure parents are updated on violent activity at school? This would have prevented a lot.
Before we go, I watched you on TV that day, and I want you to know every parent in America stood with you.
Thank you.
And thank you for standing. Thank you for being here. Would you guys like to take this? Yeah.
Sure. Thank you. First, I'm so sorry that you and your family, your daughter, any parent would have to go through that. What happened in Loudoun County was outrageous and continues to be outrageous. And I share the speaker's sentiment that we were with you then, we're with you now. With specific emphasis on the knowledge of violent activity that happens in the school. That's a very important part of the Parents' Bill of Rights, because anytime, this is why I said in my opening remarks that it's kind of out of, it's in disbelief that we even have to put this in, the language in that would ask or tell schools to notify parents when something violent happens in the school, that they would be required to tell parents. I would kind of hope they would just do that anyway at a general good practice for the safety and well-being of their students. But the Parents' Bill of Rights Act, it does require students to notify their parents of violent activity. There's a specific section under Section 104 that talks about the right to information about violent activity in the child's school and timely notification of any violent activity. Again, I think this is the absolute least we can do, something schools should be doing anyway. I'm so grateful that it's part of the Parents' Bill of Rights, and I'm just very sorry that you had to go through, and your family and your daughter had to go through what you did. But I thank you for sharing your story and standing up for your family as any of us would, and we'll include that as a safety precaution for students moving forward that don't have to go through that again.
Thank you.
And Mr. Smith, you asked about privacy too, and I too. Everybody on the stage, everybody in this room is with you, and it's an outrage what happened to your family, and then to be arrested just for calling the fact that my daughter was assaulted truly is an outrage, and every parent's nightmare relived over and over. But let me tell you, and I got to say hello to you, and I got to Jessica. You're filming on the phone right now, and thank you for your courage of continuing to fight. I can tell you this. I can tell you, you and Loudoun County, your story in Loudoun County are part of the foundation of why we are here today. Your story that should never be repeated ever again. Everybody's story of the Rona getting suspended, Nicole getting sued, the questions about just transparency are all outrage. But to be arrested for coming forward as you did truly weighs on all of our hearts. Privacy. Let me tell you what we're doing. Privacy. We're first of all saying schools aren't going to sell kids information or information about kids. Parents, when schools systems develop their standards on privacy, what those will be going forward. Parents, there needs to be at least a parent part of that procedure going forward. There needs to be permission granted before medical exams or whatever it is you're doing physically to a kid. Parents need to say yes, need to be asked, and we shouldn't allow our schools. But let me tell you what really is disturbing. And you would think, once again, why do we want to put that in there? There is never a time when a teacher should tell a student, let's keep this between ourselves. Let's not tell your parents what we're doing or how this is going down. Never. I can never think. And this bill says, no, we're not going to allow that going forward. Parents are not going to be kept in the dark. Parents are going to be part of the education process going forward. One last thing. When we talked, you said that you were looking possibly at other states. I want you to know Florida would welcome you. We would love to have you in the free state of Florida.
Thank you. Thank you a lot.
First of all, for every parent got up and for every student, if you've been harassed in school, thank you for standing up, because you're saving other parents and students by doing that. So I want you all to remember H.R. 5, the Parents' Bill of Rights. 5 is the age that kids start going to school. But it's built on 5 pillars, right? The right to know what's being taught in your schools and to actually see it. The right to be heard and not sued for asking. The right to see your school budgets and to understand how they're spending the money. The right to protect your child's privacy. And for the teacher not to be the parent. The parent is always the parent. And the right to be updated on any violent activity at the school, so you know what's happening. I think it's common sense, but unfortunately, it doesn't seem like it's happening. But you know what? In a new Congress, we keep our word, we keep our promise, and more importantly, we're going to make sure the Parents' Bill of Rights get through this House. Thank you for joining with us today, but join with us as we move this bill. Thank you very much. Most importantly, all right, what we want you to do, you know, when you watch things that happen for bills, they have to get signed, right? So what we want you to do is join with us in your support, sign over here, the parents and the students can sign as well, your support for the Parents' Bill of Rights. And what we're going to do too is we're going to put it online, because we want millions of parents across this country to join with us. This is the people's house. We want the people to be involved in moving this bill and making it all important. So for those who got up and spoke, why don't you be the first? You stood up with everybody else. Come on over. And for all the kids, we got certificates for you too. Yeah.